Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Best Practice in Conversation. It's been a while. It's just been parked for a while because it's been busy. There's been a lot going on, which is really, really good. And today, on this episode, I am delighted to be speaking with Carmel Kelly. Carmel is the network manager for LHP Skillnet, which is the leading healthcare provider Skillnet division of Skillnet Ireland. I began collaborating with LHP Skillnet back in 2019 in the delivery of training programs, which has been great both for me and also for the clients that I work with. But what I really was hoping to do today is kind of have a chat with Carmel, let Carmel tell you a little bit more about what LHP Skillnet does. And yeah, so first of all, hi Carmel, and thank you for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's really delighted to have the opportunity to reach out and to talk to the primary care sector. It's not a sector we often get an opportunity to talk to en masse. So this is a great opportunity. So thanks very much.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you here. I suppose I had mentioned to Carmel that I would often talk about LHP Skillnet, and I would always very much acknowledge that the work that you do and how you support, I suppose, private healthcare enterprises and private healthcare
Mm,
businesses, both from a clinical perspective and from a sort of a administration, leadership, management perspective as well.
mm.
So, Carmel, I'd love you to maybe tell us a little bit more about that. I suppose what LHP Skillnet are all about, where do you get your funding, and I suppose some of the areas that you do support.
Mm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's I suppose it's amazing the amount of people that you come across that still haven't heard about us.
Mhm.
So we were established ourselves as a network in 2008. So that's the healthcare skillnet, but skillnet Ireland have been in existence since 1998. And they are set up as a government agency who support employers and those in employment with the upskilling and workforce development really of their employees. So they receive funding directly from the National Training Fund, and then they they distribute out the funding then to sectors or to regions based on applications that we submit. So in 2007, a group of private healthcare providers came together with the introduction of the HICWA standards. Of course, there was a lot of emphasis on training and upskilling in the HICWA standards. So I suppose a company was set up, limited by guarantee, not for profit, to apply for Skillnet Ireland funding to support the workforce development of the private healthcare sector. And that application was successful. And they began trading in 2008. And I suppose primarily, again, on the back of the HICWA standards, the focus was very much on the upskilling of healthcare assistants at that time. And that would have dominated the work of the network for a number of years. But as I suppose the reputation of the network and the standard of training that was being delivered to healthcare assistants grew, um, there was requests began coming in for other types of clinical training, which they were able to collaborate then with other training providers and subject matter experts to deliver a lot of clinical courses, dementia, end of life, restricted practices, those type of things. Um, and so we carried on, I suppose, dealing mainly in a clinical training, clinical skills training, I suppose, for a large number of years. Um, the focus then, I suppose, from Skillnet Ireland and from Irish business in general was towards management training and the realization that, in order for Irish businesses to be competitive, to be able to grow, to develop, to meet the demands of the country, that there really needed to be, I suppose, a focus on, higher level management training and upskilling in that area of management and leadership. And we, of course, then, looked to the private healthcare sector to see that there really was a bit of a, quite a significant gap in terms of management training within the sector. So even pre-COVID, we were already in that space of management training and development, and obviously hence the reason how we were able to collaborate with yourself. We had been working for the previous year with GP practices, but it was very much, again, a clinical focus. So we were doing things like BLS and anaphylaxis and hypertension training, ear irrigation, cryotherapy, and the focus was very much on the nurses. This is the remit of Skillnet Ireland and LHP Skillnet, is that it is all levels within the business, to support all levels of staff within the business, up to and including the owners, the business owners, and the senior executive staff.
Yeah,
So we then started to, I suppose, to look more closely at the management gaps, the management knowledge and skills gaps within healthcare. And I suppose our natural draw was more to the nursing home sector, where that's where we were quite dominant. But I'm delighted to say over the last 4 years, we've seen a significant increase in the number of home care organisations, private hospitals, and primary care and GP practices that have been joining the network. And of course, the
yes,
more people that we have involved in the network, and we have that kind of collaboration piece and the realization and recognition that an awful lot of similar type businesses have very shared challenges and shared knowledge and skills gaps that then we're able to address through the development of bespoke courses. And that's what's great, working with the likes of yourself, as some to, that you really come from that sector, you understand the sector, you
of
understand the
course.
challenges of managers within GP practices, so we can get courses developed that really are going to meet the needs of the participant on that program.
And of course, there's the recognition there as well, Carmel, that I suppose when healthcare professionals choose, you know, whether it's general practice or some other area within health, they're very focused on that. You know, they want to be
Mm.
they want to do nursing, or they want to be the doctor or
Hmm.
whatever, and they're often ill prepared, really, I suppose, to face the challenges of running an actual business and recruiting staff and managing staff and
Absolutely.
all this sort of comes with it. And I suppose that's where
All the
LHB
business
Skillnet,
skills.
all
Yeah.
the business skills for
Mm.
sure, yeah. Um, and I suppose it's recognizing that for what it is really, because
Hmm.
ultimately, you know, a regular business, those expectations come with it. But in healthcare, that's not where their primary motivation is. But yet,
Or
it's
their
so
or their
important.
primary qualification,
Or
and
their
yeah.
qualification, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it is a fundamental part of, regardless of the subsector of healthcare that you're
mhm,
in, management is such a huge piece. And in a lot of instances, you find yourself in a management position because you're very good at your clinical job,
yes,
and you end up then maybe not being able to use your skills and talents in your clinical job because your role has moved into more management, of which you're not prepared because you don't have the skill set.
yeah,
And so it's to, while a lot of us are trained to level 8, level 9 and above, you know, in terms of our clinical, education, but in terms of management, so we are not afraid to start from the ground up and go to the basics of
yeah.
management, management training. So we've delivered everything from, level 6 leadership and management programs right up to, kind of, I suppose, IMI level management and
Mhm.
leadership programs. So across the spectrum, depending on the needs and the skills required.
Yeah, and sometimes it is that. Sometimes it is that higher level, but
Mm.
sometimes it's just about coping with the day to day,
Mhm,
you know.
mhm.
And I think you mentioned it there about the whole foundation of it. You know, what are the basics that I need to ensure that my business is operating in a way that allows me to do my
Yeah.
job,
Mhm,
that my staff are trained and knowledgeable enough in their roles so they can get on with their jobs.
mhm.
um, so it isn't always about getting the qualification, it's that practical element
The
of it as
practical.
well,
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
yeah, that allows your business to function.
Yeah, and I think I suppose we pride ourselves on being sector led and member
Yeah,
company led. So what
yeah,
we mean by that, or in that context, is we develop the types of programs that you need. We don't look to the programs available and see which one suits you best.
mm,
We can work with providers like yourself that will develop bespoke. And
yeah,
I think the key thing that I should have mentioned at the very beginning
mm,
is that everything that we do is subsidized. So we get our funding from Skillnet Ireland, who, as I say, the funding comes from the Department of Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science, into the through the National Training Fund into Skillnet Ireland, and then we submit our funding application to support the private healthcare sector. So every program that we run, we pay a percentage of that through, through the funding. So it's ensuring that our members can get the highest quality of training at a cost, at an affordable cost,
Mm.
because like every business, the cost of running every business, is skyrocketing at the
Of
moment,
course,
and
yeah,
we don't want to see education and training affected by that. So the
absolutely.
subsidies are there,
Yeah, and
and
we have to invest in people because that's
mhm.
ultimately the key.
Oh, absolutely.
Carmel, we talked about, one thing that was of huge interest to me is that when we're focusing in on the healthcare business, we're looking at it across all levels. So, as you said, it's not just the owner manager, it could be their manager. So in the case of a GP, it could be their practice manager, it could be a senior administrator, it could be the medical receptionist. Then, of course, you
Mm,
also mentioned the nurses from a clinical point of view, but also from a leadership point of view, because
hmm
that's also something that's required in any role, I believe. It's not just from the top at management level. Everybody needs an element of leadership. eh,
Yeah.
Um, it's an attribute that's very valuable in any kind of a work environment to try and empower people to be leaders within their own space
Oh,
within the
in their
workplace.
discipline.
Yeah,
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 absolutely. And I think, you know, it, to recognize the challenges that primary care is going through at the moment in terms of, I suppose, difficulty in recruiting GPs.
hmm,
And, there is an emphasis now going towards more nurse-led, services as well. And I think,
yeah,
you know, that's where, we can come in as well in terms of supporting you to be able to upskill your nurses, to have them
yeah.
more autonomous maybe in terms of running nurse-led clinics and that sort of thing. And just even because the course isn't there and developed doesn't mean that
You
we
can't
can't have
do
it
it.
available in the
Yeah,
next 12 months. We
yeah,
have Skillnet Ireland invest heavily in new program development. So
mhm,
where there are new skills or new opportunities and new gaps being identified, and if there isn't an education program out there to support it, then that's where we can avail of up to 80% funding for program development, which is
fantastic.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I suppose when you mentioned that, so when the government launched the chronic disease management program
Mm,
back in, I think it was due to launch in 2020, and it's pretty much in full flow right now. But that was designed very much as a nurse-led
mm,
program.
hmm
And they're doing really well. I work with practices all over the place and they are doing well, but there is some element of kind of struggle there, just trying to get clarity on what's involved and knowing what their role is and also I suppose being able to take ownership of it. But by not having all the knowledge that they might need, it's very hard for them to take full ownership of it.
Yeah.
So I think it would be broadly welcome to see, like there are lots of courses out there, particularly from a clinical point of view. But I think yes, there's a definite gap to create more learning around what is the nurse-led role and how could we develop that within
Mm,
general practice. Because as you say, in the next 3 years, a third of GPs are going to be retiring in Ireland.
yeah.
Um, and and there are more nurses coming in. That's really good news. Like I'm seeing an awful lot more nurses coming in from a hospital environment as well,
Mm, yeah.
and training up in house. And
hmm
I don't think there's even an awareness, to be honest, that LHP Skillnet offered the range of courses from a clinical
mm,
point of view. Um,
yeah.
so, I maybe even talk a little bit more about that again, Carmen, because, the type of training I do is obviously from management, leadership,
hmm
administration. But from what can you offer practice nurses?
We can, I mean, we really can offer anything, any clinic. We would have a wide range of subject matter experts and educators that we collaborate on it with on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
The types of things that we've done, I suppose, where, say cryotherapy, that's quite a was quite a challenge to get that. But once we've made that connection and we've developed that program,
Mm.
we have it and it's available, and easy for other practices then to be avail of it. And again, ear irrigation was another program that wasn't available, and just through networking with subject matter experts, and we develop the course, we get them NMBI accredited, and the nurses get the continued education units for all of the programs.
Yeah.
Um, we also, I suppose, in response to exactly what you said, where nurses are coming out of maybe the acute sector and moving into primary care, um, there wasn't access to an introduction to primary care.
No.
There was no type of training being provided for that. So
Mm.
we were, I suppose, doing a lot of stuff as standalone, and it was sporadic in terms of how or when they were delivered. But we've now brought all of that together under one cohesive program that covers 14 different topics, from men's health, women's health, mental health, dementia, um, immunization, vaccines, um, travel medicine. There's wide range, 14 different topics. And that's delivered over about an 8-week program at 2 afternoons or 2 mornings or whatever. Again, it's whatever suits the companies, the timing and all that can be totally flexible.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
so that's an introduction to practice nursing.
Okay.
So it's
And
just to give that new nurse in a snapshot of some of the key clinical areas that they'll be dealing with
that they will
as a
need
practice
in
nurse.
their
Yeah.
day to day. And can I ask you then, Carmel, how do they access it? Do you need to have a group, like a minimum number that you would require to run a course, or how does
Yeah.
that work?
Well, as they were member company led, so we try not to kind of bombard people with lots of adverts and putting up public courses and trying to sell seats and that, places
Mhm.
on the courses. But what we do is, as people contact us with inquiries about particular courses where we see there is a bit of an interest, we'd use our contact details. We do have a newsletter that people can subscribe to, and so we'd use our contracts through that, and we'd circulate information about particular courses. But
Okay.
I suppose in terms of any training need, we like to look at each organization as as an independent business and look at their training needs and to see how best to address their training needs, depending, of course. It's often, and you'll know this, as something, it's the bringing together of companies that's often where a lot of learning takes place. So
Yes.
you know, we would be advocates of that whole, and hence the network features. The word network features a
Mm.
lot in Skillnet Ireland. I mean, and it is that peer learning, and it's that coming together from similar organizations and sharing experiences, problems, and exploring solutions.
Yeah, and that is huge, really, because I suppose that's something I do witness working in primary care, is that many practices are working in isolation.
Mm,
As somebody described to me fairly recently, um, we're here and we're working in our own little bubble.
mm,
And they sort of go in the morning, and the doctor goes one way, the nurses go the other way. And even though obviously they work collaboratively within the practice as well, it's very much kind of almost on a task-led basis.
yeah, yeah.
But everybody then tends to kind of just work independently. And of course, there are supportive groups, there are organizations out there um, where you can reach out and get support on different things, and
Hmm.
maybe to advocate for certain things as well. But nothing beats actually being in an environment, in a learning environment with people, and that additional extra layer of peer support that you get,
Mm,
quite
mm,
on top of the knowledge that you're receiving.
mm.
That peer support is such a strong piece.
It is. It's
Yeah.
huge, and
Yeah.
that kind of almost validation that it's not just you. These are shared challenges,
Yeah.
and
And more importantly, I might just add, I'm doing okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And and it is that there is a lot, and I suppose what's different now, of course, is COVID has introduced us all to a new learning environment, and that is
Mm.
the virtual world, you know.
Yeah.
And actually, what we have found is that, you know, it took a long time, but people are quite comfortable on screen with each other now. And
Mm.
we kind of felt that, oh, until it goes back to face and in the classroom, we're never going to get that, you know, we're never going to get that same classroom kind of connection. But
Mm.
actually, we are achieving it now
Yeah.
virtually. People are used to that space, and it that kind of environment as well. It works well for people in terms of time management and
Yeah.
ease of accessibility and no travel. And,
Yeah.
you know, as much as we'd all like to be going away and staying at a hotel every now and again,
Yeah.
practically it's just, you know, it just
Yeah.
makes educational, I suppose, access to education just that bit more achievable.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. It doesn't matter where in the country you are.
Mm,
Because I know in the past, I provided training down in Cork, and I had, I think I had to practice from somewhere over near Dingle, and that was such a commute for them, actually.
mm,
So the whole idea that you can provide something online,
mm,
it doesn't matter. You can be anywhere in the country, you can
yeah.
be any place, you can be at home, you can be in the workspace. And I feel as well somehow that when you're doing something online, that you very much have protected time to do it.
Mm,
It's you kind of just schedule that cutoff time, and then you can focus on whatever course you're doing or whatever. But the accessibility piece is a huge big
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Mm,
Carmen, thanks so much. Like, from my point of view, I just felt, a lot of people don't really realize the amazing work that LHP Skillnet is doing in supporting healthcare. And I was keen to, suppose, do my part
mm.
in helping to get the message out there. And it was really lovely to chat to you today. And thanks for taking the time. I hugely
No, thank
appreciate
you.
it. Um,
Thank you.
I will be putting all the contact details on this as well for Carmel. Some of them are there on the screen, which may be a little bit hard to read, but that's fine. I will be putting them in there as well. And what I might do, Carmel, as well, is put in a link to subscribe to the LHP Skillnet newsletter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
yeah, because I feel that even just, in general, people will benefit just by being
Mm,
kept in the loop as to what's
yeah.
going on. And
And
that's, yeah. Sorry,
And I
Carmel.
suppose just
Yeah.
just to say too, like nothing works better than picking up the phone and just
Yeah.
having a chat. So even if you're
Okay.
kind of still not sure, you know, can they actually help me, or you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Okay.
We're always delighted to just have a chat
Yeah.
to people about the network.
Super, or they can drop an email as well. So I'll put
Hmm.
in those
Yeah.
details as well. So again, Carmen, thanks so much,
Thank you very much.
and for
That's
taking the time.
all right. Thank you very much.